All right. Hello, everybody. How's it going? This is Immigration Attorney Moumita. I'm coming to you live to talk to you about immigration and to see what questions you may have on your mind today. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Moumita Rahman, and I'm an immigration attorney. I have been practicing immigration law for the past 15 years, and it is my pleasure to do the work that I do because I believe that immigrants make America great already. So thank you for joining me live, and let's talk immigration. Sanjay, thank you so much. Sanjay Gouda, big fan from Sacramento. Nice to see you here. Thank you to all of my clients who are watching and to any of the clients that we saw last night in our exclusive webinar that we held for law firm clients last night. Thank you for joining. Last night we shared lots of important immigration updates as well as ways to protect yourself underneath this administration for current clients of the law firm only. And for those of you who are not clients and want to become clients, if you want to learn more about whether or not we can help you, please call us for a case evaluation. Our telephone number is 212-248-7907. I just want to point out that we only have one phone number at this moment, which is 212-248-7907. Don't be afraid of the New York area code. We serve clients all over the US. And also, please protect yourself. There are a lot of people who are imposters, who are impersonating me, pretending to be me, pretending to be the law firm. They are not us. We are the only law firm with this phone number, and we are a real law firm, but don't be taken advantage of. We're not on Telegram. We're not on WhatsApp. We will never ask you to wire us money. Those are all the scammers, okay? So let's talk about the new registry announcement that was made by the Trump administration, which is kind of the big news today. So what is this registration requirement? Well, basically, underneath this alien registration requirement, I'm just going to read. This is really my first time kind of reading along with this. I'm going to go ahead and explain what this means and what you might need to do, what you may not need to do, and whether or not you should be worried, okay? So what is this registration requirement? It's essentially a requirement that relates back to one of the executive orders that President Trump signed in January 20th, which is called Protecting the American People Against Invasion. Such a terrible title, but anyway, whatever. So it's basically saying that with limited exceptions, any non-citizen 14 years of age or older who has not already been fingerprinted when applying for a visa or who has not already registered and who is in the US for more than 30 days or longer must apply for registration and fingerprinting. And basically what this means is that if you are here for more than 30 days you have not already been fingerprinted or registered with USCIS or DHS, then you are now required to register with this registry, which, you know, I don't think they've even created the registry yet or created a system of registry yet, but that's what this is saying. And they are now saying that if you don't register, then you may be subject to certain penalties as well. So there are some exceptions. I do want to point out that if you have already gotten your green card, you have already been fingerprinted. If you have already been paroled into the US, you have already been fingerprinted. If you have already been issued an immigrant visa before coming to the US or a non-immigrant visa before coming to the US, you have already been fingerprinted. If you have already been placed in removal proceedings by DHS, you have already been fingerprinted. If you have already been given a work authorization, even if it's expired, you have already been fingerprinted. If you have ever applied for a adjustments of status green card application or various other applications with immigration, even if they're denied, you have already been fingerprinted. And if you are somebody who has a border crossing card, then you have already been fingerprinted and you're not required to register, okay? So the big question is should you register or should you not? Now, legally you have to register if these things do not apply to you. So if you've never been fingerprinted before and you are in the US for more than 30 days, then you are legally required to register underneath this. However, the government has to go through a lot of things in order to enforce this. They do have to publicize this in different ways. They also have to create that system. And my guess is that this is probably going to get challenged in court because let's just face it, it's BS. And we know that they're just going to use this as some sort of way of targeting people. Okay, so that's all that I want to say for right now. I'm not, all I'm saying is that legally, according to this, you should be required to register if you've never been fingerprinted before. Should you or should you not? That's your own personal decision that you're going to have to make. Okay, all right, let's go ahead and answer some questions right now. Hello, Mike Johnson. Do I have to change my address to a green card holder if I'm in the same state? Nafis Udin, anytime as a green card holder, you are actually required to update your address with USCIS within 10 days of moving, okay? Also, I do want to point out, I have had a, I've been meaning to do, I want to talk about these cases that we got approved. Actually, we've got more green cards in the other room. But I want to tell you about all of these cases that we got approved in the past three or 4 days. And I can't, like, people are afraid to apply for immigration cases right now because they think that immigration is not approving cases or that cases are getting harder to apply. And I'm here to tell you that it's not impossible and things have not really changed. Of course, things might get a little bit harder in the future, but when you're working with attorneys who are prepared and who know how to argue these cases, that is really what's going to make the biggest difference. We have a VAWA approval for a client from Jamaica right here. Can't wait to get this into your hand. It's a C31 work authorization. We have another client from Jamaica who got their VAWA approved. Congratulations, they're going to get their C31 EAD. And these two are spousal VAWAs. We have here a VAWA for a parent, a client from Mexico who got their VAWA approved, okay? And I know that we're very excited because we had an RFE on his case that we won. I have another VAWA approval for a client from Libya right there. I have another VAWA client for another client from Mexico. This is a spouse. This I'm so excited about. This is a green card based upon a VAWA approval for a client from Honduras. And this is a VAWA approval, green card based upon VAWA that was approved for a client from Brazil. This is a green card for a client for whom we had filed an I-751 removal of conditions. We had a pretty nasty RFE on his case. And this is a green card for a client from Pakistan. That client was from South Korea, and this client is from Pakistan. Just a regular run-of-the-mill immigrant visa case. So this is, I'm telling you this news, I'm sharing this news with you so that you do not get depressed and you do not lose hope that things are impossible right now, because it's just not the case. Of course, we want to be careful. And of course, like, especially with things like this registration requirement, we know what they're going to use it for. Let's be honest. They want you to register so they could track you down if you're here, right? So there are certain scary things that are happening, but there is still hope out there, okay? So, all right, let's go ahead and answer some questions. What is the current processing time for I-360? And will this increase in 2025 from Vishnu? Vishnu, the current processing time has been roughly the same over the past 6-7 years, which is basically about 3 to 3.5 years. More or less, okay? I was married to a U.S. citizen. I have kids during my marriage. Do they ask in citizenship the kids COD? COD, what is COD, Al-Farad, on TikTok? I don't know. Abby, thank you for the rose. Thank you for the rose, Abby05. So I don't know what COD stands for. I'm having a moment of not knowing right now. Thank you for all the follows, guys. Davey, you missed the Zoom last night. Davey, don't worry. We're going to send you a recording. Okay, we're going to send you a recording to any of our current clients who missed our special exclusive webinar last night. How long are the VAWA green cards taking? Well, for these two, I believe we filed their VAWA applications probably in 2021, 2022. So right now, yeah, it's roughly 3.5 years approximately. Okay. Would my daughter be able to fly out of Florida from Oregon? She has SIJS. From Patty. Patty, if your daughter has filed for SIJS, if her SIJS is already approved, she has her work permit based upon that, then I mean, like, SIJS, it's a legal status, right? She has special juvenile immigrant status already. So she should be able to fly, that status. She's not undocumented at this moment, okay? But if it's still in process, then you really want to be careful, especially if you're in Florida. Okay. Do I have a lawyer by the name of Linda from Marianne? Marianne, we don't have a lawyer by the name of Linda, but we do have an intake specialist by the name of Linda. Okay. And she's the one, you may have been assigned to her. My USCIS case says step 2 of 2 case decisions. DJ Freestyle, I don't really understand. All right, let's see what's going on. South Carolina in the house from Good Burger on Instagram. Hello. Hobab. Amani, hello. Jacob is asking, how can you get a green card? Jacob, there's a few different ways. It depends. Love Glenton, thank you so much. Okay, hello from Shakil. Puju, you have a question about EB5. Will the gold card still be there? Yeah, I guess so. If anyone's got $5 million to pay for a green card, I guess. Can you explain TPS for Haiti from Zoe Life? Zoe Life, I don't really do a lot of TPS, so I don't really stay that current with TPS updates. But what I do understand is that basically it's being canceled going forward, or it will not be renewed going forward. So if you already have TPS, I did get this question I think yesterday, where if you already have TPS. Basically, think of it this way: if you have a work permit based upon DACA, if you have a work permit based upon DPS, and they cancel these programs, does that mean that you're no longer authorized to work? Well, technically, you still have the card, right? You still have the card, and I would make the argument that you are authorized to work until that card expires. Daily Janesi, thank you, nice to see you. Veridical, advice on an I-601 waiver interview after overstaying, from Veridical. Veridical, that's a very interesting question. What advice can I give you as an attorney if you have an I-601 interview after overstaying your visa? So first of all, I do want to point out that there are 2 types of applications that sometimes get confused. One is called the I-601A waiver, which is only going to waive something called unlawful presence. And then there's something called the I-601, which waives multiple types of things, like if you ever committed immigration fraud, if you have certain arrest history, like a CIMT, and if you are doing a green card application inside the U.S. and you have one of those problems with immigration, then you would file usually the I-601. And for this, you would usually have an interview in front of an officer here inside the United States. Now, if you need to do the I-601A, that usually means that you don't have a legal entry when you came to the U.S., but you're married now to a U.S. citizen or something else, and you have to leave the U.S. to do your interview overseas. But before you leave the U.S., you need to do the I-601A waiver because of the fact of your being, unlawfully in the U.S. for so many years. It would prevent you from returning because of the 10-year bar. Okay. The I-601A does not have an interview, but the I-601 here inside the U.S. may have an interview. And what do you have to prove for the I-601? Well, you have to prove that your U.S. citizen spouse, your green card holding spouse, or your U.S. citizen mom or dad is going to suffer extreme hardship if your case gets denied. And for extreme hardship, you have to show that your U.S. citizen relative is going to suffer financially, medically, psychologically, emotionally, lose educational opportunities, lose work opportunities, both inside the U.S. if you leave, and also that if they're forced to relocate, if you get denied, like let's say you're from Mexico and your wife is going to move with you to Mexico if your case gets denied. Well, does your wife speak Spanish? Do they need medical insurance because they have a medical condition? Are they going to suffer in Mexico because their life is being uprooted in so many ways? These are the sorts of hardships that you have to prove. And if you get an interview for it, honestly, in the interviews that I've had, I've never been asked about the hardships, but the officer can ask you about the hardships, right? They can ask about what the conditions are and about how you'd suffer. So my advice for you, if you have an I-601A interview, is to be prepared. Know in and out what your case says, know in and out what the hardships are, know the argument that you're going to make. Make sure you go with an attorney, okay? Also, I just want to point out that if you have been in the process of doing an I-601A because you were told by other attorneys that even though you're married to a U.S. citizen, the only way for you to get a green card is to leave the U.S., I do want to let you know that there may still be options for you to fix your status inside the US without having to leave. And why do we want to fix your status inside the US without you having to leave? Well, because it is scary as all heck as shit to leave the US, right? It's scary to leave the US. It is scary and terrifying to think of getting denied overseas. It is terrifying to think of the fact that if you get denied overseas, you're going to get stuck for possibly years without seeing your family and basically be torn apart. So that is why in my office, we really strive and struggle to make sure that we look to see if a client is eligible to fix their status in any other way besides doing the I-601A before we say, no, that's your only option. And what are those ways? Well, number one, if you're married to a US citizen or to a green card holder and you're having problems in your marriage. Now, let's be honest. And I'm speaking from my own personal experience. When I have done I-601A waivers in the past, there was a lot of problems that I saw in my clients' marriages that I couldn't really say anything about it at that time because of the nature of our relationship. But I know now that they were suffering, like the client was suffering a lot of emotional abuse. So for example, if your spouse is controlling, they're jealous, they don't like for you to go out, they don't want you to go play soccer, they don't like when you hang out with your friends, they make you dress differently, they don't want you to work out, they go through your phone, they like to see where you are, they call you on FaceTime constantly to see where you are. This is control. This is jealousy. This is not just toxic behavior because, like I know we have jokes about being married to a toxica or your spouse being toxic, right? It's not funny when you're undocumented because when you're undocumented and you're married to somebody who's constantly threatening divorce, getting mad at you every single time, and in the back of your mind, you're probably scared and you're probably so worried about what's going to happen to your case if you get your spouse too mad, right? And that's not the way that you should have to live. Thank you, Nikki. And also one more thing that I see is that if you have kids and your spouse threatens to take the kids away, threatens you that you can't see your kids, tells you that they'll never believe you because you're undocumented and they're the US citizen, tells you that you'll never win custody battles, then this is also very serious. This is very serious. If you're suffering these things, then you really may be eligible for something called the VAWA self-petition. And to the VAWA self-petition, you don't need to leave. What are some other ways? If your marriage is completely perfect and you say that this has never happened to you, what are some other ways that you might be able to fix your status without leaving? Well, I could also talk to you about something called the T visa, which so many immigrants are eligible for, but not enough attorneys do this sort of case. And I'm very thankful to some of my attorney colleagues who taught me how to do this case, and to my attorney colleagues who are teaching other attorneys how to do this case, because this is so important for our immigrant community. There are millions of immigrants in this country who are working underneath very bad conditions. If you're undocumented and your employer especially knows that you're undocumented or just that you're an immigrant, and they basically force you to accept very bad working conditions. They treat you horribly at work, screaming at you, not letting you take breaks, making you work really long hours, treating you in a discriminatory fashion when you can see that maybe your citizen, your US citizen colleagues are not being treated the same way. Threatening you with immigration, threatening with calling police, telling you that you might get in trouble if you don't do what they say. These are actually signs that you may qualify for something called a T visa application. And the T visa stands for basically trafficking, but it's not the same as drug trafficking or child trafficking or anything like that. Trafficking in the immigration context has to do with if you work for somebody, you're employed for a company or a person, or you're in a relationship with somebody who makes you do things, and you do those things out of fear of how that person is going to harm you if you don't listen to them. And the harm can be many things. The harm can be psychological, it could be financial, it could be physical. There's a lot of different harms. You don't have to be locked into a room and forced to work underneath, underneath like those sorts of conditions. You could be free. You could be paid on a salary. You could receive more than the minimum wage, and you could still be trafficked for immigration purposes, okay? And if you have ever worked for an employer who has been racist, discriminatory, abusive, this is something that we should explore to see if this is an option for you, okay? And if you want to find out whether you might qualify, please call our office at 212-248-7907, okay? All right, let's see. Can I text you from Sprinkle Lee? No, I cannot text you, sorry, not right now. Are T visas really dependent on direct evidence? What if you only have witness statements from Akshar Patel? Akshar, T visas barely have any evidence. I rarely ever have evidence for a T visa case. Usually we are winning and filing our T visa cases on just the client's affidavit. And that's why our affidavits are very important in our case. In our office, we take a lot of time. Sometimes, sometimes clients complain. Of course, I get it. Like maybe we take a little bit too long to prepare a case, but that's because we're trying to be super careful about the affidavit, especially to make sure it is describing what happened to you with the correct details that immigration needs to understand and needs to see so that they can approve your case, okay? Thank you guys so much for the flowers and all the little heart things from Paulino, Kismayo, thank you. Khaled, Abby05, thank you so much. Noli 1978, thank you so much. Let me just see real quickly if you guys have any questions. I have a valid case pending. Is it okay to expedite my green card? I have a memorandum from the U.S. Army commander from Nikki. Nikki, yeah, I think you could definitely I would try to expedite with that. You could show why it's urgent. Nikki, thank you for sharing my live. Where am I located? I am from Carlos. Carlos Hernandez. I'm in New York City, and I work with clients all over the U.S. I work with a lot of clients in many different states. So please don't be scared to call us if you're not from New York. Okay, we work with clients all over the country, and I know the telephone number may be confusing, but we work with clients everywhere. Can I get a green card if I was sexually harassed by my boss if I sued him and won the case? From Queen Smiles. Queen Smiles. Oh my! First of all, I'm so sorry that happened to you. I hate that. I hate that. I really, really hate that. And I hate that happened to you. If you are undocumented, if you're an undocumented immigrant and you work for somebody who sexually harassed you, we have done so many T visa cases for, women and men, but mostly women who have been sexually harassed by their bosses. And there have been some really terrifying stories. And yes, please call us Queen Smiles because you might be eligible for a T visa based upon this. We'd love to ask you some more questions, okay? When you are sexually harassed at work and you're undocumented and you put up with that sexual abuse because, listen, if you're being sexually harassed by your boss, I mean, I don't even know what to say. There's so much fear in that because they have you held hostage even more. They have you held hostage in two accounts. There's that fear of being physically violated and humiliated even further. And then there's also that fear of reputational harm because you know how you might get called. And there's also that fear of losing your job. And when your employer does that, for me, this is very much labor trafficking. So give us a call, please, Queen Smiles, 212-248-7907. Aileen Rocha, how long for T visas to be approved? T visas are taking on average less than 2 years at this point, okay? Less than 2 years. If you have a legal entry but are now out of status, can you marry an LPR and adjust your status in the US? From John CB. John CB, you could marry them, but you'd have to basically do a waiver, the I-601A waiver. But if your spouse becomes a US citizen, then that doesn't matter anymore. Okay, John CB? Undocumented workers have no right to sue any boss. From Meet Leonora. That's absolutely not true. Absolutely not true, my dear. I'm so sorry, but in civil court cases, especially for employment law cases, there is no requirement that you need to be documented to sue your boss for unpaid wages, wage theft, things like that. Those sort of penalties, they don't care if you're documented. So if you're undocumented and you have not been paid properly by your boss, you can absolutely file a claim with your state Department of Labor and sue them, okay? You don't need to be documented for that, and this is a common misconception, okay? All right, guys, that is all the time that I have for tonight. Thank you so much for joining me. It has been my pleasure to be here with you tonight. Our telephone number is 212-248-7907. Please call us if you're looking to find out more about the cases that I have mentioned tonight. Nikki, Noli, thank you so much for the gifts. I appreciate you very much. My clients who are watching, thank you for joining. And I will see you again the next time. Thank you and God bless and good night.